Okay, let's dive in. We're talking about that moment, when the life you've carefully built just starts to, well, fall apart.
Yeah, it can be sudden, or sometimes it's more like a slow crumble.
Right. And you're left looking at these pieces and they just don't fit anymore.
Disorienting.
Totally. So today we're really getting into this experience,
Yeah.
but maybe not seeing it just as failure.
Mm-hmm. The source we're looking at actually calls it, well, provocative maybe. Calls it a gift.
A gift. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously a really painful one. Confusing.
Definitely painful, but the idea is maybe it's a starting point, an opportunity perhaps to build something stronger.
So that's our mission today, kind of, to unpack how this breakdown, this falling apart, can actually be, well, the beginning.
It's a fascinating reframe, isn't it? Because our first reaction, usually when things go wrong...
Just stress, right? Fix it, go back.
Exactly. You just want it to be how it was.
Yeah.
But what if the falling apart itself shows you something?
Like cracks in the foundation you didn't see before.
Yeah. Or, maybe parts of that old structure that weren't really working for you anyway. Misalignments.
That makes sense. And the instinct, like you said, is run away from the pain, distractions, keep busy, anything but face it.
Uh-huh. But the source material is pretty blunt here.
It says the only way is through. No shortcuts.
Right. You can't rebuild if you're pretending it didn't happen, this breakdown. It's called the only doorway to growth.
Wow. That's strong. It makes me think of, a forest fire.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, it looks like total devastation, right? But it clears out all the dead stuff, the underbrush.
And actually makes the soil richer.
Exactly. So new things can grow, stronger things. It feels like a powerful metaphor for this personal breakdown stuff.
It really is. And this cycle, this destruction and renewal, it's everywhere, isn't it?
You see it in nature, like the fire.
In business, old models get disrupted. Even like in art or writing, you have to scrap ideas sometimes.
True. Tear it down to build something better.
And for us personally, the source says this often means letting go.
Letting go of what, specifically?
Old habits, maybe, patterns of thinking, those ingrained fears we all have.
Or just excuses, right? The comfortable reasons we give ourselves for not changing.
Yeah. Those things that maybe helped once, but now they're just holding us back.
It's like shedding skin, you said.
Yeah.
Like an old layer that protected you.
But now it's too tight. It's restricting you.
Yeah. And this leads to what the source calls the hardest truth, which sounds ominous.
It's a tough one. It says you can't really start rebuilding
Until
you fully, truly accept that you have been broken.
Oof. Acceptance. That's huge.
It is, but the source is careful here. Acceptance isn't like giving up or feeling sorry for yourself.
It's not defeat.
No, it's more about courage, facing reality, and being really honest with yourself.
Okay, honest reflection.
Yeah, asking, okay, where did I play a part in this? Where did I go wrong?
But not in a self-blaming way.
Exactly, not beating yourself up. More like understanding your choices, taking responsibility, but without judgment.
Right.
Just seeing it clearly.
Owning your part. No blame. Just, okay, this is what happened, and this is my role.
That seems to be the key. That ownership is what lets you move forward.
And there's reassurance, too, right? The source says something about shame.
Yeah, importantly, it says there is no shame in falling apart.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Because it can feel incredibly shameful.
Totally. But it points out, think about people you admire, people you see as strong, resilient.
We've all had tough times, breaking points.
Every single one. The difference, it suggests, isn't that they never fell, it's that they didn't let that fall define their whole story.
Right. Strength isn't never falling, it's getting back up, learning from it.
Precisely. And there's this other interesting idea that comes from being at that low point.
What's that?
The bottom gives you something the top never will. Perspective.
Perspective. How did that work?
Well, when everything you relied on, everything you thought was solid, just dissolves.
You've got nothing left to lose, nothing left to protect.
Kind of, yeah. And it forces this radical honesty, all those external things.
Like status, what other people think, keeping up appearances.
Yeah, all that stuff. Suddenly it just seems less important, maybe even meaningless. And you realize it wasn't really you.
Just layers you put on.
Exactly. And letting go of those layers, the source argues, actually creates space.
Space for what?
For your real self, your authentic self, to kind of breathe, to finally come out. It's like those external things, the status, the validation. They can act like armor.
Protecting you.
Maybe. But also maybe keeping you from really connecting with what you actually value, what you really want.
So stripping that away, It lets you find what truly matters again.
Yeah. Building a new foundation, but this time on something more real, more intrinsic.
Well, it sounds like digging, almost. An excavation.
That's a good way to put it. And you can't rush that part, can you?
No. The source implies you have to kind of sit with the rubble for a bit. Feel the discomfort.
Ask what it's teaching you. Acknowledge the loss.
Not to get stuck there, but just to clear the ground properly before you build again.
Right. Facing it head on, that's what earns you the change, the transformation. It's like going through the fire refines you.
And maybe it's not even about becoming someone totally new.
Sometimes it's more about reconnecting, isn't it, with who you were before the world told you who you should be.
Yeah. Before all the layers got added.
And that rediscovery often starts, in the quiet after the storm.
When things are still uncertain, messy.
That's the moment, the
Yeah.
chance to really look at your foundation and decide consciously what you want to build next.
Okay, so let's say you've navigated that initial shock. You've faced it, you've accepted it. You're standing there, maybe feeling a bit shaky, on what the source calls sacred ground.
Even if it still looks like chaos around you.
Right. This moment, it says, is actually the most powerful moment
For what?
for redesigning yourself intentionally.
And crucially, it's not about just gluing the old pieces back together exactly as they were.
No, definitely not. The source really emphasizes creating something greater.
Something more aligned with who you are now.
Yeah, with your new understanding, your maybe shifted values, what you now aspire to.
The old version served its purpose, but you've learned, you've grown through the breakdown.
So rebuilding is creation, not just fixing,
Intentional creation.
which naturally leads to some big questions you need to ask yourself. Like, okay, who do I actually want to become now? And what kind of life am I willing to, put the work in to build?
And maybe the biggest one.
Why? Yeah. What's my why behind all this?
Because without that deep why, that
Yeah.
purpose, the new structure could be just as fragile.
Absolutely. It's like trying to sail a ship without knowing where you're going or having a compass.
You'll just get blown around by whatever comes along, external stuff.
Yeah. That purpose, that why, it's your internal compass. It gives you direction, makes the rebuilding deliberate, not just reactive.
And speaking of external stuff, the source has a pretty strong warning about that.
Don't let the world hand you the blueprint.
Basically, yeah. Don't fall into building a life based on someone else's idea of success.
Because even if you achieve it, it'll feel empty, hollow.
That's the argument. True satisfaction, real contentment, comes from building something that feels like home in your own soul.
Home in your own soul. I like that. Defining success your own way.
It comes back to authenticity, doesn't it? Making your outside world match your inside world, your values, passions, strengths.
Instead of just chasing what looks good or what everyone else seems to be doing.
Exactly. Which, can be really hard to resist sometimes.
Okay, quick pause here.
Yeah.
If you're finding this deep dive valuable, if these ideas are resonating as you navigate your own stuff,
Yeah, if you enjoy exploring these kinds of topics in depth.
we'd love it if you'd consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. We go even deeper there. More explorations like this one.
Just a quick invitation while we're in the flow helps us keep these conversations going.
Absolutely. Okay, back to it.
Yeah.
So you're defining success your own way.
Right, you've got your why, you're starting to lay down these new foundations, but then comes another potential roadblock.
Yes. The comparison trap.
The source literally calls it the enemy of growth.
Strong words again. But it makes sense, doesn't it? Looking sideways at everyone else's path.
It derails you because your journey is unique. What works for them, what makes them happy or successful, it might be totally different for you.
So you have to cultivate that ability to trust yourself, your own gut feelings,
Listen to that inner voice, the one that knows you.
which can be hard to hear sometimes with all the noise.
For sure, social media, expectations, it all drowns it out. Maybe these breakdown moments actually quiet things down enough to finally hear it.
Interesting thought. And the rebuilding itself, it's not just about big dramatic actions, is it?
No, the source talks a lot about the inner work, cultivating qualities within yourself.
Like what? Discipline?
Discipline, yeah. Honesty, real honesty with yourself and others, and just consistency. Showing up.
Not maybe the most glamorous parts of change.
Maybe not, but they're called the architecture of greatness, the essential structure.
The building blocks. Consistent positive habits, making ethical choices, sticking to your values. That's what makes the change stick.
Exactly. That creates the resilience, the sustainability.
But you can't just think about it. Can't just journal about discipline.
No way. The source is very clear. Action is key. You have to take that vision, that ideal future self.
And actually do things. Bring it into the real world through effort.
Yes. And don't wait for the perfect time.
Because it never comes, right?
Never. Just start now with what you've got. And that first version, that first attempt at the rebuild.
Doesn't need to be perfect.
Nope. Just needs to be yours. Embrace the imperfection. Learn as you go. Build, adjust, build some more.
That takes the pressure off a bit. Just start moving.
That bias towards action is so important. Avoid getting stuck just thinking about it.
And keep reminding yourself why you're doing this. The source says it's personal, right?
Deeply personal. It's not for show, not for likes or validation from others.
It's about answering something inside you, that deeper calling.
Exactly. And that inner voice, that why, that's your compass when things get tough.
Which they will.
Inevitably. So you reconnect with the purpose, check your integrity, and keep adjusting the design as needed.
Letting that intrinsic motivation pull you through.
Yeah, because external rewards fade, but that inner drive, that's sustainable.
Okay, so you've got the drive, you're taking action, but don't expect miracles overnight.
Definitely not. The source calls rebuilding demanding, humbling, often exhausting.
Exhausting. Yeah, that feels real.
And navigating that requires resilience. That's the key word here.
You got to be ready to just keep showing up, even when it feels like nothing's changing.
Or the progress is painfully slow, invisible even.
Like the roots growing underground before the tree pops up.
That's the analogy they use. It's insightful, right? You don't always see the internal shifts, the new habits forming, the mindset changing. But that's the groundwork.
So patience, perseverance.
Yeah, absolutely. Resilience, the source says, is like the bridge.
Between who you are now
And the person you're becoming. It's that discipline to keep going when everything in you wants to quit.
when the doubts creep in.
Yes.
And resistance will come up. Challenges will test you. But the source suggests they aren't there to break you.
They're there to build the strength you need.
To forge that strength for the future you're building.
And resilience isn't about being perfect, right? Not being bulletproof.
Not at all. It's not about never falling or never doubting. It's purely about your ability to get back up.
Again and again.
However many times it takes, making that choice every day, sometimes every hour.
Just to keep going, even when it's hard.
That commitment, chosen over and over, that's what builds character.
And then, gradually, almost without you noticing at first, things start to shift.
Your actions start lining up more with your vision. Your habits reflect your values more consistently.
You actually start to feel different, like your identity is changing.
Yes, you become the kind of person who follows through, who endures, who you can rely on.
Yeah.
Who you can rely on. That's the real transformation. Not just thinking it, but living it, integrating it.
Through those small, consistent actions, day in, day out.
And then when the next storm hits,
Yeah.
because life will keep throwing things at you.
You'll be different. You won't crumble in the same way.
You'll have that inner strength. You'll know yourself better.
And you might even see setbacks differently, not as disasters, but as, okay, what can I learn here?
Necessary steps, maybe. Information.
As long as you're learning, as long as you're moving forward, even slowly, the source says, you are winning.
Winning. Even when it feels like a struggle.
That change in perspective is huge. That's resilience in action.
So the final takeaway here, the last thought from the source, it's pretty powerful.
What is it?
Stay in the process.
Don't rush it. Don't fight it.
Respect it. Because who you become through the rebuilding,
Yeah.
that's actually more valuable than whatever goal you thought you were aiming for.
The journey shapes you more than the destination.
Exactly. And once you've done it, once you've rebuilt yourself from the ground up, that fear of falling.
That doesn't have the same power.
No.
Yeah.
Because you know deep down you have the strength. You know you can rise again.
You've proven it to yourself.
Yeah. So the final message isn't just about bouncing back. It's you are not just surviving, you are becoming.
Wow. That lands powerfully. A really encouraging way to look at those incredibly tough times.
Yeah. Finding the potential for growth right there in the breakdown.
It reframes the whole experience.
Absolutely. A reminder that even when it feels like everything's falling apart, that mess,
Yeah.
that can be the very ground you build something amazing on, something truly authentically you.